Hi, welcome to Chard Review. Is the epitome of what an Asian mom would desire her child to be like. She's a child prodigy who graduated from med school at the age of 10 and is currently a doctor at just 16 years old in the hospital. People call her Doogie, nicknamed after the famous show from the 90s called Doogie Howser MD. Even though she's a child prodigy, Laila struggles to juggle between her career and living her ordinary teenage life. Sometimes in the hospital, because of her young age, she has to face some prejudice from some patients. Let's dive into her family background. Laila's father Benny is a native of Hawaii and runs a shaved ice cream and flour truck near Oahu Medical Center, whereas Laila's mother Clara Hannon, who's originally from Philadelphia, is the chief of medicine. Laila has two brothers, Kai the older one and Brian Patrick the younger one. And let's not forget about her best friend Steph Danisco, who has a huge crush on Kai. Laila is turning 16 soon, and she's all set to experience many of her life's firsts, such as passing the driver's license test and attending the school dance with her hot crush Walter. But before that, she wants her mother to extend her curfew hour after 11 p.m. Laila tries to talk Clara into giving her permission, at least for her birthday night, but it's to no avail. This causes a spot between the mother and the daughter. Back in the hospital, Laila has a heart patient named Will, who she's close with. Despite their age difference, a day before Laila's birthday, Dr. Lee, the heart surgeon, advised that Will would need a heart transplant, and Laila disagreed, pointing out that it was too risky for his age, but Clara supported Dr. Lee and approved the transplant. However, the transplant schedule isn't fixed. Will wants Laila to be there for him at the time of the heart transplant, and Laila gives him her word. On the day of Laila's birthday, Walter comes to pick Laila up for their school dance, and in the evening they attend the program with Steph and Kai. However, in the middle of the dance, Laila is asked to come to the hospital. Immediately she apologizes to Walter for leaving earlier and rushes to the hospital. All those firsts that she's been looking forward to don't necessarily contain joy, as she experiences the death of her first patient even before she has the chance to undergo surgery. Will passed away due to cardiac arrest in his sleep. The grief of losing her first patient is heavy for her to deal with alone. Thankfully, Laila's mother is also doctor, who comforts her during her hard time. For the next few days, Benny and Clara are worried to see their daughter so disheartened. However, they see Walter cheers her up by kissing her by the beach. The next day, when Laila is telling Steph all about the kiss, Walter passes by them and is indifferent toward the young doctor. Back in the hospital, a patient has been brought in an emergency. He's come to Hawaii to hike the stairways to heaven, but ends up in ER after his legs suddenly stopped working. He tells the medical team that he hasn't done anything or been in an accident, so as a result, Laila spends her days brainstorming on the case. On the other hand, Laila notices Walter ignoring her after their kiss. Their relationship status hasn't even been declared, and Laila is distressed by this, so Steph comes in handy when it comes to handling things like these. She helps Laila to prepare the lights, pillows, soft blankets, and even a live musician for the perfect beach date for Laila and Walter. On the day of the date, Walter's awestruck when he sees that Laila is prepared so much for their perfect day, but he claims that he has papers to write and tries to walk away. He even avoids Laila's goodbye kiss and gives her a high five instead. Seeing this odd response from him, Laila becomes very confused. After a flop date, she meets Kai on her way back. He's waxing a surfboard when he talks about tourists' dumb posture while learning surfing. Seeing him do that exact pose gives her an idea about her patient's condition. Laila then pulls out all the cases on surfers' myelopathy, which is caused due to the deprivation of oxygen in the spinal cord. She hurries back to the patient and asks if he's surfed after arriving in Hawaii. As expected, the man has taken one surf lesson the day before, and Laila's treatment helps the man get up on his own legs again. Now Laila has to do something about her relationship with Walter, so she goes to confront him directly. Walter tells her that the date was too much for him and it felt like she was out of his league. Since the misunderstanding has been cleared, Walter professes that he likes her and they end up kissing. Things are going well at the hospital as well. Laila performs a very complicated medical procedure with the help of her colleagues Noelani and Charles. They want to celebrate the success by going out to dine, but Clara holds back Laila, telling them they have leftover meatloaf at home. On their way back, Laila asks their mother if she can take her car and get a drink at Starbucks with Steph, but Clara declines a request at dinner. Ryan tells Benny that he wants to take hula lessons, and Benny couldn't be any happier for his boy to be interested in Hawaiian culture. But the truth is, Brian Patrick is just joining the class for his crush Melee, and during the same dinner, Kai Brings up their neighbor Mr. Kahala's old Vespa, which is interested in taking care of Lahala, feels that it's unfair that she isn't allowed to drive to Starbucks, but Kai is getting a Vespa for himself the next day as she's walking on the beach with Steph. An accident occurs when the local reporter Riptide falls off the aerial lift truck while reporting live. Thankfully Lahala quickly assesses his condition and acts quickly. As his lungs are collapsing, she borrows a hairpin from the crowd, sterilizes it with a lighter's flame, and then stabs Riptide's chest with it. Riptide starts breathing again and is sent to the hospital. It turns out that Lahala rescuing him goes viral as it's been broadcast live, and we see that Benny and Clara are also extremely proud of her. The next day Lahala stops by Riptide's room to check on him. Riptide is too lively for a man who almost died a day before. During their conversation he asks the young doctor that she must herself have done crazy things as she's just a teenager. Lahala tells her that with her job and her parents she can only wish. She tells Riptide that she's not even allowed to drive with her friend to get a drink. Hearing this, the man tells her that life's too short to be asking for permission. He reminds Lahala that she didn't ask his permission before jabbing the hairpin in his chest the previous day. Finally Riptide advises her to take a risk and do whatever she likes, and also adds that she can just apologize later if things go wrong. Riptide's encouragement really helps Lahala, and she steals Clara's car and drives with Steph to get the drinks while their parents have gone to Brian's hula show. However, the problem arises when a tire pops midway. Steph immediately goes to get help. Just then Kai shows up and is impressed by his little sister's bravery and taking out their mother's car. Lahala lashes out at Kai, claiming he can get whatever he likes while she cannot, even though she has a full-time job. Hearing this, Kai tells her that she just needs to work smart like him if she wants to get things. He then helps her to change the tire and reach home just in time before their parents return back. While conversing with other parents in the hula show, Clara realizes that she needs to let her children know that she is lucky and proud to have them, especially the halo. So the next day Clara opens up to Lahala and tells her that she's just afraid that her grown-up capable daughter might set herself free and never return back to the family. Hearing her mom say such a thing for the first time, Lahala assures her that it won't be the case. One day when Lahala, Walter, Steph and Kai are at mini golf, all of a sudden Walter starts getting uneasy. Lahala suspects appendicitis and immediately takes him to the hospital. However, upon reaching the hospital she sees the ER flooded with patients from the multi-car pileup accident, and all the surgeons are occupied with no other option. She's now compelled to operate on Walter. The surgery is a success as it isn't such a serious surgery for Lahala, but having his girlfriend operate on him is not a small deal for Walter, and he starts purposely ignoring her. Meanwhile, Dr. Choi, the chief of staff, takes so much time off Claire's presentation that she's unable to make it on time to Brian's play, so she apologizes to him for missing the show. Brian tells her that he wasn't actually expecting her to come because of her job, despite Brian and Kai telling her that they understand her constraints. She gets hurt that her children were not counting on her, and also realizes that she's missed many important milestones in their lives, so Claire decides that she'll cut down her work hours to part-time and spend more time with her children. In the following days, she spends her time playing games with Brian and involving herself with kindness cooking, but the kids aren't used to her being around. While they do their stuff, they ask Benny's help to stop their mother's interference, so he asks Clara to help him with his shaved ice truck while their Dr. Choi stops by for a shaved ice and lets Clara know that he's been offered to be a doctor for the Lakers and is searching for his replacement as the chief of staff. Clara feels bitter when Dr. Choi tells her that she could do a better job in his position, but it's too bad that she wants to spend her time with the kids. To lift her mood, Benny takes her surfing. He tells Clara that she can decide if she wants to go for the position of chief of staff or spend time with the kids, and either way he would always support her. On the other side, Lahala is concerned about Walter not contacting her. Steph suggests that he might have been put off by Lahala's intelligence, speculating that being operated on by her could have made him feel embarrassed. She tells Lahala that she doesn't have to display her smartness in everything and asks her to tone down a little bit. When they go to the escape room on Friday, the escape room gives them 1 hour to solve the puzzles and escape. Initially, Lahala tries to stay quiet and let her team handle the challenges. However, as time runs out and they haven't solved any puzzles, with only a minute left, Lahala can't resist the urge to solve all the puzzles herself. She quickly solves them all, opens the door and hastily exits the room. Next, after seeing Lahala feeling solo, Clara comes to check on her. Lahala tells her that it would be better if she wasn't the girl genius. Hearing this, Clara advises her to be true to who she is, and if the world can't deal with a strong woman, it's the world's problem. Not hers with that. Clara also decides that she'd give it a try for the post of Chief of Staff and another strong competitor running for the same position as Dr. Lee. Later, when Walter comes to visit her, Lahala tells them that if her being smart is intimidating to him, then it's his problem. However, Walter tells her that he loves her because she's smart, and they make up. Meanwhile, Dr. Lee is getting busy getting on the good side of Dr. Choi by engaging in the friendly weekly basketball game between the medical professionals. On the other hand, Clara finds it tough to find a good time to have a good conversation with Dr. Choi. Clara used to play ball when she was a young girl, but now her skills have gotten rusty, so here's where her boys come in handy. They help her to prepare for the game. Claire then takes out her treasured sneakers and is determined to win over Dr. Choi with that game next. Lahala finds the site called Drip Flip, where one can buy limited edition sneakers and other stuff and sell them for more money, almost like the stock market. She's invested in it, and her former stock market trader father even teams up for it without knowing that those are Clara's lucky sneakers Lahala's sold her mother's pumps to balance out her loss in the drip flip. When Benny comes to know about it, he takes Lahala to her uncle's ranch so she can disconnect from her work and drip flip and focus on what really matters to her. In the next scene, the boys encourage Clara to go to the game because she's prepared so much for it, and as expected, their mother totally smashes the game and a few fellows. However, Dr. Choi praises her tenacity and sets an appointment. On the other hand, Lahala buys back her mother's sneakers for a fortune and realizes that the flipping business is not as simple as she thought. The Halo receives an invitation to Liliokahani High School as a distinguished alumna to host a booth during Career Day. Olivia, a member of the school dance team called the Royals, seeks the hairless advice on recovery as they're preparing for a performance in Riptide's program. Lahala never had friends her own age, and Olivia also seems like a nice girl, so they hit it off. Quickly impressed by Lahala's skills, Olivia extends an invitation for her to join the team and perform together. However, Steph, who dislikes Olivia for standing out and fears losing Lahala's friendship, expresses her disdain towards Olivia. For the first time, Lahala hangs out with girls her own age, but Steph's not happy with that. Lahala tells her that if she's a true friend, she would have been happy for her. This leads to a wedge launched between their friendship, and Steph walks away angrily. Luckily, the spot doesn't last long as Lahala goes to make up with Steph. Unfortunately, on the day of the shoot, Lahala twists her ankle and recommends Steph take her place. Steph has been following the group around, so she pretty much knows all the dance moves. Also, the Royals are more than happy to welcome Steph into their group, and the shoot wraps up without any issues. On the other hand, Kai skips his SAT test and is determined to be a farmer and has started volunteering in the field. Initially, Clara gets angry with them for acting out, but once she sees him working and learning happily, her anger cools off. Kai takes his partners to meet Akamu, the farm's owner. During their conversation, they come to know that Akamu, an agricultural science graduate. Now Kai's also convinced to take the S.A.T and join the college. Back in the hospital, Clara talks to Lahala about being the chief resident, and Lahala sounds interested. Later that day, Dr. Lee invites Dr. Arthur Goldstein from Seattle, who's famous for printing a 3D heart valve. All this is to win some brownie points for his chief of staff competition. Dr. Arthur showcases his legendary surgery footage clip and discusses it. He even declares to provide a fellowship offer with them in Seattle. On the other hand, Benny's excited about the surf competition week, the Aloha Surf Cup. When he checks in for the competition, he's irked to be put in the Sunset Group, aka the senior group. Annoyed, he comes back home when Lahala comes home and tells Clara that she wishes to sign up for the Goldstein Fellowship. Clara tries to remind her strength as a doctor is to help people rather than self-promotion, which seems to be the case with Dr. Goldstein. Still, Lahala's stubborn. The next day, Lahala's disheartened as Dr. Goldstein won't even consider her for the fellowship because of her age, despite her not wanting Lahala to join him. Clara feels that it isn't fair for Lahala to be disqualified because of her age. Just then there occurs an emergency when Claire goes to have a talk with Dr. Goldstein. Goldstein witnesses as the staff of Oahu Hospital calmly handles the situation under the leadership of Clara, and especially Lahala displays her excellent performance by remaining poised and in control. He acknowledges that Lahala is a phenomenal doctor. He even offers her the fellowship, but she turns him down, leaving the shaved ice truck in the care of Kai and Brian. Benny goes to the competition only to be told that the Sunset team is not going out that day as a big storm is coming. He meets Walter there and gets invited to tomorrow's surfing. It looks like even if the waves are soaring, the boys are going all out. The next day, while Kai has gone to stop Benny from surfing in that 12-foot tall wave, Brian makes a mess of the truck. Benny wants to prove that he's not old and weak, but his poor back betrays him and goes out when he picks up the surfboard. Finally, the last day of the competition arrives, but Benny refuses to go surfing, seeing this Kai has to remind him of his love for the ocean and convince them to go and surf, or else he might regret it for the rest of his life. And with this, the seniors in the Sunset Group hardly welcome Benny. In the next scene, Dr. Lee is actively competing for the chief of staff position, prompting Clara to feel the need to step up her game, and he advises her to engage more with her fellow staff members, as they may recommend their preferred candidate for the prestigious title. Despite working at the hospital for many years, Claire has always maintained a serious image and struggles to remember her colleagues' names. Her attempts at intentional interaction have resulted in awkward experiences, leaving her uncertain if her co-workers would support her for the position. Benny even takes her to the local market to practice her social skills, but it proves to be equally uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Lahela gets asked out by a male volunteer in the hospital whose ultimate motive was to get a recommendation letter from Lahela, the genius team doctor. She firmly declines the invitation, however, shortly after she gets the code blue message, so she asks him to take her back to the hospital. Surprisingly, the boy blatantly refuses, claiming that his favorite poet is up at this moment. Lahela realizes that Walter was always there for her and would never leave her hanging like that. Nevertheless, she manages to make it back to the hospital and attends to her patient. A few days later, Walter gets a call from the Global Surf League asking him to join the tour this summer in Australia. Lahela is happy for him, but the too long months might take a toll on their relationship. However, Lahela assures him that they'd make it work no matter what happens. Before he leaves for Australia, Lahela wants to make his birthday special, so for that she sends the baker detailed sketch of the cake that she wants on Walter's birthday. Lahela assigns the task of picking up the cake to Steph, Kai and Brian. Lahela attempts to leave work early, but Dr. Lee assigns her the additional responsibility of transcribing his procedure voice memos, which will be beneficial for her cardiological rotation. Fortunately, Lahela's colleagues come to her aid, and they quickly complete the task. However, a minor issue arises when the highly anticipated cake gets damaged during transportation by the trio, but Steph expresses confidence in Kai's ability to fix the cake. In the evening, Lahela joins the party and discovers several missed calls from her father, who's currently at Uncle John's ranch, to divert Walter and Lahela's attention away from the cake. Kai surprises everyone by kissing Steph. Meanwhile, Walter insists that they visit Lahela's father. Fortunately, they decide to go, and upon arriving, Lahela realizes that Uncle John is experiencing bacterial endocarditis, a condition identified from Dr. Lee's notes. They swiftly rush him to the hospital and promptly inform Clara. As well, the trio arrives at the hospital with the cake, leaving Lahela astonished by its condition. However, Walter appreciates their efforts and loves the cake nonetheless. Later that night, Lahela comes across a post from the Australian surf tour seeking medics. She decides to apply for the job and successfully secures it. However, she anticipates that convincing her parents to let her join the crew will be challenging. After careful consideration and thorough preparation, she gathers her family and shares the news. Lahela explains that she's never had the opportunity for a proper vacation and expresses her desire to travel to Australia with Walter, although she's visited other countries before. Those visits were primarily for training or boot camps. As expected, her parents forbid their 16-year-old daughter from traveling alone with her boyfriend. Meanwhile, Uncle John is in the hospital recovering. Each year, they commemorate Kamehameha Day with a potluck, and Uncle's Kahlua pig is renowned as the best. However, since he's unable to oversee its preparation, Benny takes on the responsibility of cooking the Kahlua pig. A few days later, Mr. Saw, the hospital CEO, arrives in Hawaii, and he holds the authority to determine the new chief of staff. Clara takes on the responsibility of giving him a tour of the hospital, but realizes that Uncle John is absent from his room. Brian, who pretends to be asleep in Uncle John's bed, reveals the truth. Claire discovers Benny attempting to secretly bring Uncle John back to the ranch for the Kamehameha celebration, and she intervenes to bring him back to the hospital. When Lahela's parents expressed their objections, she approaches the board and submits a request for 2 months of vacation leave. Clara, upon learning of this, becomes furious, and as Zerbos, she denies Lahela's leave request. In a burst of anger, Lahela decides to quit her job. She rushes to meet Walter and shares her decision with him. However, Walter responds by expressing his reluctance to go to Australia, suggesting that they can try again next year, but advises Lahela not to jeopardize her career for the sake of the tour on Kamehameha Day. Clara makes a surprising Decision to discharge Uncle John from the hospital, bringing him to join the family in the celebration. Benny's played a role in helping Clara realize that Uncle John thrives in an outdoor environment and confinement indoors isn't beneficial to his healing process. This choice to discharge Uncle John may come at the cost of Claire's chances of becoming the chief of staff. In a heartfelt conversation, Lahala and Clara discuss their thoughts and concerns. Eventually, Clara grants Lahala permission to go to Australia. However, Lahala's made up her mind not to go, as she's worried about Walter's future. The following day, despite Clara bending the rules by discharging a patient, Dr. Saw comprehends her intentions and appoints her as the chief of staff. Later that day, Lahala convinces Walter to chase his dreams and join the tour in Australia. She assures him that she'll wait for him on the same island, surrounded by her cherished loved ones. A week has passed since Clara assumed the role of chief of staff, and her primary focus has been meticulously preparing the hospital budget for a presentation to the board. However, Lahala grows increasingly frustrated by the hospital's recent practice of turning away homeless individuals and redirecting them to the county healthcare facility. Lahala confides in her mother about her distress, but Clara is constrained by the hospital's rules and limited resources, making it impossible to assist everyone. During the meeting, the board raises concerns with Clara regarding the hospital's expenditures due to minimal profits. In response, Clara informs them that the reconstruction of the Maka wing is nearing completion. As a result, she is requested to organize a brief trip for the board members to visit the Maka wing the following day. The next day, a poor little kid brings his pet dog, who's just been in a road accident, and asks Lahala for help. A trip to the vet would cost the boy a fortune, which he clearly doesn't have, so Lahala decides to take matters into her own hands. She convinces Noelani and Charles to take part in the secret mission of operating on the dog in the Maka wing. Regrettably, Clara and the hospital board discover her actions, leading to Lahala's suspension. Clara, realizing the injustice of Lahala's suspension, contacts Riptide Show to highlight Lahala's heroic dog rescue. The program captures the attention of the hospital board, prompting them to summon Lahala back. However, there is a condition: Lahala can only return if the hospital establishes a fund to assist those in need. Meanwhile, Uncle John has passed away and Benny misses him more since his birthday is just around the corner. Uncle John has always been a father figure to him. Also, the rusty old car that he's driving was sold to him in his 20s by his uncle, but now the car is only a piece of junk and is unsalvageable. Kai suggests getting a new car, but Benny refuses to let go of his vehicle. Nevertheless, after some convincing, Benny eventually agrees to get a new one. Ever since that day, the Kami Aloha family starts the tradition of going to the beach on Uncle John's birthday to spend time together and create memories. And on top of that, Walter comes back prior to his schedule to surprise Lahala. Following Walter's arrival, his entire surf team joins him in Hawaii, and their sponsor generously provides them with a house to stay in. Lahala is taken aback when she discovers that Blake, the friend Walter often mentions, is actually a woman and is sharing a living space with him, despite Blake reassuring Lahala that their friendship is strictly platonic. Like siblings, she still feels somewhat self-conscious about the situation. Lahala senses that she doesn't quite fit in with Walter's new circle of cool friends. In an effort to demonstrate her fun side, Lahala decides to host a party. She enlists Clara to accompany Benny and Brian and checking on the ranch, while she and Kai make preparations for the upcoming event. Around the same period, Lahala's initial encounter with Nico takes a wrong turn. Their second meeting takes place at the hospital, which turns out to be just as uncomfortable. Lahala reprimands Nico for making jokes about cancer, unaware that he's actually a cancer patient himself, using the party as an opportunity Steph intended to have a conversation with Kai. However, witnessing him engaged in a lively discussion with Blake. Later, Steph approaches Kai and expresses her desire for clarity about the status of their relationship, noting that it had been months since their last kiss. Unfortunately, Kai fails to provide a response, leaving Steph disheartened and giving up on him as she perceives his lack of concern for her feelings. Meanwhile, Lahala jumps off the roof into a small inflatable pool to prove her daring and fun nature. However, the situation quickly escalates when one of Walter's enthusiastic friends attempts the same dive and ends up getting injured. Lahala promptly attends to the injured friend, confirming a dislocated shoulder that will require 3 weeks to heal. After a long day, the team decides to rest. Sensing Lahala's sadness, Nico tries to strike up a conversation and encourages her to express her feelings openly. The following day, Lahala's parents return home and notice empty cans of energy drinks scattered around. Clara questions Kai about whether he threw a party in their absence. However, Kai finds it difficult to Respond coming to his aid. Lahala explains to their mother that it was her idea to throw the party. She clarifies that the celebration was in honor of Walter and his team, who recently secured sponsorship from the energy drink brand. Understanding that the children had enjoyed themselves, Lahala's parents let them off the hook without further consequence. Later that day, Lahala opens up to Walter about her intentions of appearing fun and exciting form. However, Walter assures her that what truly matters to him is her genuine self. In time, Blake forms a friendship with Lahala and Steph. Additionally, Kai begins to realize his feelings for Steph right before the Kami Aloha family vacation commences. Lahala's young soccer patient is discharged from the hospital. However, Lahala, who's a workaholic, requires some coaxing from her family to leave the hospital and join them at Ulani for the vacation. Benny eagerly anticipates the luau where they plan to capture family photo in their matching aloha outfits. Meanwhile, Kynes to have a conversation with his younger sister, but as usual Steph interrupts by joining them for a complimentary resort stay. Despite complimenting Steph's earrings, Kai's efforts are met with indifference from her. The plan is for Lahala to take a break from work and for Steph to use the vacation as an opportunity to move on from Kai. However, Lahala changes her plans when she learns that her soccer patient has been readmitted, and although she won't be allowed to obtain any information about them, she asks her father for the car key and drives to the hospital. Meanwhile, Steph encounters a trio of women who provide her with pampering and distraction from thoughts of Kai. Upon Mahala's arrival at the hospital, Dr. Lee and the resident doctors prevent her from taking charge of the case. They advise Lahala to use her time to be with her family, reassuring her that the hospital has numerous capable doctors who can effectively handle the patient's care. Regrettably, everyone except Benny misses the luau, resulting in him being the sole family member present for the portrait. Nevertheless, Lahala takes charge of preparing the family dinner with a particular focus on her father. After that, they all come together in matching outfits for a memorable family photograph. Later on, while Lahala and Kai are in the pool, Kai opens up about his feelings for Steph. He reveals that he's been attracted to her for quite some time, but due to their close bond as best friends and her status as part of the family, he's chosen to ignore his emotions. However, their kiss on Walter's birthday made him realize the depth of his true feelings. As they continue to play together, Lahala also manages to solve her patient's condition. She promptly goes to the hospital and, working alongside her patient, narrows down the diagnosis to granulomatous lung disease caused by NTM infection. The highly anticipated school dance competition, the Jelly Jam, is approaching rapidly, and students are beginning to ask their crushes to accompany them in the most extravagant ways. A girl approaches Kai with a musical band and invites him to the Jelly Jam, but he politely turns down her invitation, mentioning that he already has someone in mind to go with. Benny's now aware of Kai's feelings for Steph and intends to ask her to be his dance partner for the event. Lahala is thrilled as she finally gets the opportunity to be in charge of the floor during the night shift. However, Dr. Lee refers to as a black cloud, suggesting that wherever she goes, trouble follows. Concerned about this notion, Lahala requests her colleagues to check on the patient every 45 minutes. Fortunately, nothing significant occurs that night and the shift concludes smoothly. Meanwhile, Walter has an important day ahead and invites Lahala to join him. They then make plans to meet at the beach for breakfast. Turning back to Kai, he's preoccupied with excessive planning alongside Benny and Brian. Claire advises them that simple gestures can demonstrate genuine care and encourages them to ask her out directly. However, he finds himself a step behind, as Spider is already asked her out. Following Lahala's shift, Nico takes her to the rooftop of the hospital, providing them with a magnificent view. As they spend time together, their bond strengthens and Lahala becomes so engrossed that she loses track of time, completely forgetting about her scheduled date with Walter. Now both Walter and Lahala arrive later than their planned time. Lahala's delay is due to losing track of time while enjoying the rooftop view with Nico, while Walter had to attend the after party. As a result, Lahala begins to feel a sense of distance between them. Walter hasn't even officially asked her to accompany him to the Jellyfish Jam dance, and to add to Lahala's sadness, he's deleted all their photos together from his Instagram due to sponsorship concerns. Despite this, Lahala tries to be understanding of the situation. Despite Kai initially missing his opportunity, Charles and Noelani provide encouragement for him to participate in the dance competition and amaze Steph with his moves. The only obstacle is that Kai lacks skill in dancing. However, Charles and Noelani step in to help Kai by training him and preparing him for the competition. Back in the hospital, Nico started developing feelings for Lahala, but she draws the line between Them as they're strictly in a doctor and patient relationship. Lahala tells them that he should go to the gym and enjoy himself as they wait for the bone marrow biopsy result to arrive. He's been looking forward to attending this event. But because the result isn't good, Lahala can't let him go to the dance and would have to look for a new treatment plan. Nevertheless, since Nico can't go to the dance, Lahala decorates his room and prepares a small dance event just for him. As they dance, Nico confesses his feelings for her and tries to kiss her, but Lahala rejects his kiss, reminding him about their doctor-patient relationship, and runs out of the room. Finally, the day of the jellyfish jam arrives and the Kemialoa family is fully prepared to attend. As Lahala and Walter arrive at the school, the girls immediately gather around Walter, eager to take pictures with him. Meanwhile, Kai decides to heed Charles's advice and dance is with all his heart, putting his best effort into the competition. Even though he doesn't win the trophy, Kai succeeds in capturing Steph's heart and they share a kiss. Later, Lahala experiences heartbreak as she comes across numerous pictures on Instagram showing Walter with other girls while they're unable to post a single picture together. Feeling neglected and ignored, Lahala confronts Walter, expressing her frustration with his constant focus on work. In response, Walter defends himself by stating that he's always prioritized Lahala's work during their relationship, and now that he's building his own career, he finds it unfair that Lahala is reacting in this manner. Sadly, their argument escalates to the point of them deciding to end their relationship. Now the heartbroken Lahala goes to her mom and seeks advice on how she'd know if a person's right for her. Clara tells her that it all comes down to how a person makes you feel and tells her that she deserves someone who can see her worth. She realizes that the only person that matches such a description is Nico, so Lahala immediately gets up and heads to the direction of the hospital to find him. At the same time, Nico also comes running to her. He tells her that he's discharged himself from the hospital so that their doctor-patient relationship won't be an issue for them to get together. Nico further tells her that she will be the reason for him to live, and with this their reunion ends with a sweet kiss. On the Hayless day off, she goes on a date with Nico and they enjoy a carefree day like ordinary teenagers, momentarily forgetting about his illness and her responsibilities as a doctor. Nico even teaches her how to ride a bike. However, as the day comes to a close, Lahala must broach the subject of Nico's treatment options. Nico expresses his reluctance to return to the hospital and continue counting his days. Distressed, Nico abruptly leaves Lahala alone and drives away. Sometime later, Lahala 31:57 discovers Nico on the ground after he loses control of his bike and crashes. Acting swiftly, she rushes him to the hospital. Once there, Clara informs Lahala that their primary concern should be Nico's treatment and recovery right now. Meanwhile, Steph, who's now in a relationship with Kai, creates a couple's name for them, Sty. She desires to showcase their relationship to others at school. However, she never anticipated that Kai would become clingy and be by her side, constantly depriving her of personal time. Steph reaches her limits when her solo in the Royals is replaced by a duet featuring Sty. Frustrated, she confronts Kai, expressing her displeasure at him constantly following her around. Kai assures Steph that he'll respect her need for space and give her the personal time she desires. Later, Lahala informs Nico that he must remain in the hospital under her care as her patient, which means they can't continue their romantic relationship for the time being. However, she promises to stand by him during his recovery. Lahala also assures Nico that once he's fully recovered, they can resume their relationship. Nico agrees to endure the experimental trials once again. With this understanding, as they spend time together, they come across old DVDs and watch a video of a young Clara performing in a rock band. Next, it's time for doctors to select their specialties, and Lahala's feeling overwhelmed by the choices. Every department expresses interest in having her join their team. To help alleviate some of the stress for her colleagues, Lahala organizes a talent show which also provides her with a opportunity to perform on stage alongside her mother. Each person prepares for the show in their own way. However, when Lahala notices Noelani's impressive vocal skills, she becomes overly competitive and loses sight of the original purpose of the show. To reduce stress, Clara, recognizing the change in atmosphere, decides to quit. Since the fun has been compromised in the meantime, Kai gets accepted to agricultural studies, sparking Brian's eagerness to claim Kai's room for himself. Benny takes the feuding brothers out to the ocean as a means of bonding and teaches them the art of wayfinding. As part of the lesson, Benny leaves the boys in the middle of the ocean, then swims away. Through this experience, the boys confront their misunderstandings, utilizing their newfound wayfinding skills and successfully making their way back to the shore, strengthening their relationship in the process. Meanwhile, Lahela realizes her mistake and asks her mother to give her a chance to perform as a mother-daughter duo, and as we expected, they slay their performance amidst the stress of choosing her specialty. Lahela receives an invitation to her 10-year high school reunion, an event she initially contemplates skipping. Benny informs her of the tradition to honor the most successful alumni, sparking Lahela's desire to attain that title despite feeling overdressed at the reunion. Lahela discovers that the event is more casual than expected and doesn't win the coveted title. However, one of her classmates named Kyle treats her kindly. Unbeknownst to Lahela, she's previously helped Kyle with trigonometry. Later, Kyle asks Lahela for assistance in distributing bento boxes to the unhoused population. Lahela becomes involved in a program that provides makeovers for unhoused individuals, helping them prepare for job interviews. As Lahela engages in this meaningful work alongside Kyle, she begins to realize her true passion and purpose. Additionally, Lahela also designs a new treatment procedure for Nico. They travel to Philadelphia for a clinical trial and undergo blood re-engineering as part of his treatment. Upon returning, Nico's condition worsens, but Lahela remains determined and doesn't give up on him. Her hard work and perseverance eventually yield positive results, and the experimental treatment proves effective, leading to Nico's remission and complete recovery from cancer. Next, the bell-ringing ceremony on the day of Nico's discharge concludes with perfection. As a symbol of his triumph over cancer, Lahela presents them with his wrist tag crafted into a koa wood bracelet. However, unbeknownst to Lahela, Nico dislikes being reminded of the hardships he endured in the hospital. The next day, he shows discomfort when Lahela brings up anything related to their time at the hospital, causing her to worry that their connection is fading. Noelani offers her advice, suggesting that they seek a new shared interest to reignite 36:01. Their spark. She proposes that Beauty and the Beast could be that special something for them. She then prepares a Beauty and the Beast themed dinner just for him. Lahela inquires if he can show up for her presentation, but it backfires. During their next encounter, Nico expresses his concern for a break from their relationship. He explains that while Lahela chose a life centered around the hospital, he had no choice but to spend his days confined there. With this, Nico returns the bracelet to Lahela and departs on his bike. On the day of Lahela's presentation, Walter pays her visit and pleads for a second chance. Lahela musters the courage to admit that she had started seeing someone after their breakup. However, she reveals that Nico's no longer in her life. Lahela holds on to the hope that Nico will show up for his follow-up appointment the next day, providing her with the opportunity to resolve any lingering misunderstandings between them. Lahela confides in Clara about her aspiration to establish a free clinic as her specialty at the hospital, and Clara wholeheartedly backs her idea. Meanwhile, Clara assigns Benny and Brian the task of organizing the annual hospital gala, a prestigious event where residents announced their chosen specialties. Unaware of Max Lee's shellfish allergy, they select an under-the-sea theme for the gala. In the meantime, Claire has been feeling slightly unwell in recent days. Regrettably, the board rejects the proposal for the free clinic, seeking Claire's advice. Lahela considers the possibility of directly approaching the CEO during the gala. With only 3 hours remaining, Benny and Brian are faced with a task of changing the theme from under the sea to above the sea. Brian extends an invitation to Walter to serve as a replacement pianist, but deep down he yearns for another chance to meet Lahela. Lahela eagerly anticipates Max's arrival at the gala, hoping to discuss the free clinic with him. However, before she gets the opportunity, she receives news that the hospital has been contacted by Nico's aunt, who reveals that Nico has gone to his favorite spot. Walter kindly offers to accompany Lahela to the location she believes Nico may have visited. Together they search for the spot where the Hell and Nico had their first date, but are unable to find him. During this time, Walter seizes the opportunity to express his love for the Halo once again. Unfortunately, Lahela misses the opportunity to speak with Max about the free clinic. To add to her distress, she receives a distressing phone call from the hospital informing her that her mother is fainted. In the next scene, Lahela meets Nico outside the hospital. He confesses that staying away from her has been difficult, prompting his return to be with her. Just as they're about to share a kiss, Walter unexpectedly interrupts them, expressing his concern for Lahela's well-being. After a brief interaction, Walter departs, but Lahela attempts to stop him. Nico recognizes that Lahela still harbors feelings for Walter and advises her to prioritize sorting out her emotions before making any decisions. Meanwhile, upon discovering that Kai will be staying at the dorm, Steph decides to bring home a pet bunny in the hopes that it will convince him to stay. They spend their day caring for Fleming, their new furry companion. However, Kai expresses His desire to delay starting college and tell Steph that he plans to join next semester, instead realizing that she shouldn't be selfish. Steph encourages Kai to pursue his dreams and tells him that he should go for it, noticing his daughter's melancholy. Benny takes Lahala to the ocean and imparts some heartfelt advice. He reassures her that she is the priority at this moment and that boys can wait. Benny emphasizes that Lahala should pursue what brings her true happiness, even if it involves venturing out into the world to help others, just as he finds fulfillment in running his shaved ice truck. The following day, Lahala pays a visit to Claire's office and shares her plan to operate a mobile medical clinic using a converted food truck. Clara, without needing to adhere a detailed explanation, readily agrees to support her endeavor. She assures Lahala that she'll handle the necessary arrangements without involving the hospital board. Now, if you're curious about who Lahala ended up with, the answer is neither Nico nor Walter. Lahala realizes that family is the most important thing in her life. Additionally, Clara reveals that she's pregnant and her recent symptoms items are due to her pregnancy. Lastly, Lahala successfully achieves her dream of operating a mobile medical clinic, bringing her passion for healthcare directly to those in need. So what did you think of this movie? Let us know in the comments below, and if you like the video, like it and subscribe for more movie review. See you next time.